Is this Mike from around the world? Uh-oh. Wait, hang on. Wait. Wait, is that you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Hold on,
okay.
just a minute. Let me get this. Let me do something here real quick.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Let's get a little more volume for you. Brock, let's give Mike a little more volume. But I don't know. You, Brock, you know how to, you're listening. You can level our voices out. Mike, how you doing tonight? Oh. Mike! Okay, hang on.
Here I am, MFAW. Hold on.
Okay, I'm holding on.
I'm going to get us some more. I'm going to get some more internal volume.
Okay.
Here we go. Hold on.
Mike must be somewhere around the world, and he don't want to tell us where he's at. But he's out there somewhere, because that sounds a little different. Let's
see what we can do here. Hold on, just a moment.
We are waiting no problem, Mike. We are just glad to be here together, and so glad you're with us tonight. Every one of you. God bless all of you. God bless all of you tonight. Let's let the Lord have his way. These apocalyptic events we're seeing. Okay, hang on.
Hold on just a second.
It's all right, Mike. I know you're a busy man. You're out there traveling the world and working on things that we're not privy to know, but inquiring minds want to know, okay?
Well, hold on, I got a small system.
Are you in a foxhole somewhere? Mike,
just a second.
Are you on another planet or something? Are you on another...
They should enable just a moment.
Okay. Mike is maybe in... maybe he's in a different country. Or maybe he's in a... are you safe?
Okay, there we are. How's that?
Better. Are you
good to go?
Yeah, you're good to go. Are you safe where you're at, Mike? Are you safe?
We're good to go. We're good to go.
Are you safe where you're at?
Oh, yeah. We're good to go.
All right, Mike. Hey, anyway, I know you travel. You're all over the world. And there's a lot going on all over the world. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. More than we can comment about here.
Well, let me start, Mike, because inquiring minds, there's a lot going on. The sun, I want to talk about the sun because there was 3 major explosions on the backside of the sun, which they say is going to affect Mercury. But before we go there, we got to go, the flagship of Russia, the Russia's best or biggest warship, sunk today. There was 500, I understand there was 510 soldiers on board, only 50 were rescued. How in the world could Ukraine get in position to sink the flagship of Russia?
Well, Ukraine has help, right? They have help. They were hit by some missiles and some water-based drones. So that ship went down. It had no choice but to go down. It was hit with some pretty devastating ordnance. But this is, that wasn't a very smart move. Here's why.
Okay.
Here's why. That was a coordinated assault by NATO, right? And with the water-based drones that were used, it's very easy to track a back trajectory of these drones and missiles. And Russia has already found out that someone intervened other than Ukraine. Now, I have to warn everybody here, but Russia said that if the U.S. would intervene with Ukraine, that if NATO would intervene with Ukraine, there would be swift repercussions. There would be devastating repercussions, right? Putin is very, he has filtered out his inner circle, which is that has everybody on edge. No matter how much they try to normalize the situation, this is not normal. Normally when Putin starts to filter out his people, he's eliminating the checks and balances for NBC-based weapons. And what I mean by that is nuclear, biological, chemical weapons. He wants to centralize the.
Okay, hang in there, Mike. Hang in there. Okay.
What he's doing. Okay. That's precisely what he's doing. He's positioning his naval forces and some of his submarine forces in several parts of the world right now. So what we have is a staging event, and everybody should be reminded of the Poseidon weapons that he possesses. And if you've never heard of that before, it's a weapon that Russia has developed that is it's an autonomous nuclear-armed torpedo, which can, by the way, it has evasion software on board, and it is self-guided, meaning he could have launched one of those a month ago, and he has a programmed date to hit a target, and they're almost impossible to find, thus impossible to stop. So there could be, there's so many unknowns, and the media is going to do what the media does, but they ought to be very responsible in what they are reporting and how they report it, because we're not dealing with somebody who's some passive individual. When China warns the world, right, and when China sends a warning out to their own individuals, their own people, and when they begin to communicate with Iran and start having conversations about protecting their people against nuclear fallout, something is up, right? Something is up.
Yeah.
China has issued a certain stance for their own people to be ready, to protect themselves against nuclear, chemical, biological weapons. And so here in America, the people are none the wiser because they can't take any type of heavy news, but that's only preparation for what could be the opening of a global war.
Let me ask you, Mike, let me ask you, China's warning their people about potential nuclear fallout. I haven't heard Americans warned about potential.
No, they're not, because it's so sad in America. If you start talking about certain subjects, due to what's called an open media, the media is the programmer for the USA, and the people that watch all the programming, they believe the world is just like the media says. Unfortunately, the world is nothing like the media. In fact, if the media says it, the world is the opposite, right? But so nobody in America is actually prepared for any heaviness. Right? All the other countries are prepared for this except us. Well, save the Christians, those ministers who preach about revelation, being prepared for certain times that will surely come before Christ does come. Those people are informed. But as far as the rest of America, they still have that concept, well, it'll never happen here, right? Kind of like 9/11, right? Pearl Harbor, kind of like those things. And New York is... it's just not a good situation. There are a couple of targets already in mind. They were talking about that tonight. They've hardened certain facilities tonight, as of tonight, meaning they have warned that something is about to take place. And although we can't name...
Who's warned who? Where's the two targets? I mean, you don't have to tell us in America?
That's in America. America has, America had to harden facilities today due to retaliation from what took place. They know that retaliation is coming. They know that retaliation is going to be heavy. And they know that Putin is going to probably, most likely, cut off the avenue from anybody ever getting to the Ukraine in the first place. So we have what was on a small scale is going on a much larger scale. And as soon as he's in position, nothing will be able to stop him. And as far as things go right now, nothing has stopped him from positioning his real arsenal in the east of the Ukraine and out in the waters near the Ukraine. Nothing has stopped him. So, it's one of those things where we can't be arrogant and believe that nothing will ever happen, but right. To actually, these days require sobriety. Much sobriety, because America's been blessed. We've been blessed for a long time. Europe has been blessed. Despite Hitler, Europe has been blessed. But we've taken, not the Christians, but the people as a whole have taken that blessing. And well, in most cases, you give a person freedom for too long, and without discipline, without reverence, they begin to, turn away from their creator in all aspects. And this is precisely what we've done. So we can expect, we've got subtle warnings through how things are not working so well in the U.S. And now you have internal folks that are absolutely pulling back from all corporations. We're about to see some major movements in the U.S. It will actually reshape the U.S. as we know it, and it's already in progress. But the war that's coming, this destabilization event called the Ukrainian crisis, is spreading. It's really spreading.
So would you say that almost World War III has begun?
Yeah, I think historically, Pastor Paul, if they look back, I'm going to be bold and say this, that in the future, if somebody were to look back, they would look back on these days and say, you know, it actually started back during the 2020 through 2022. But Russia has some, they predominantly can control the domain of space. We can't forget that, because they were the ones sending all of our astronauts up to the International Space Station. You have to have a support infrastructure for that. And Elon Musk is doing his best to position himself to take over command of such, that's a very rigorous task. But he's doing his best to put things in position so that we don't have to rely upon Russia. We still rely upon Russia. We still rely on Russia. Russian-made vehicle transport systems, Russian-made electronics, Russian-made engines, this, that, and the other. We're still reliant upon them. And by the way, you have to have brand new chips, software, and reset software and redundancy from Russia to even get these vehicles to work. So Elon Musk has really taken upon himself the task of actually handing over all of that back to the U.S. By himself, because if we don't, Russia can effectively shut us down from our space domain, and there goes, Air Force Command. And then we'll have to, if that ever happens, then the U.S. will have to be forced to reveal things that will just break all trust with its people. But yeah, Russia still, they dangerously command the domain of space, the domain under the water. And they have hypersonic technology. They have an arsenal that they have not unleashed to the world yet, right? That they're not going to unleash it until they're ready to strike. So here we are, though.
So when you talked about this atomic nuclear torpedo, have they ever fired this thing in warfare before?
No.
So this is a serious nuclear weapon.
Yes.
That probably shoots from I'm going to say a submarine.
Yeah, it can. But as with the case in 2020, they launched it from Russia, and it went right to Florida, turned around, and went halfway back before we could ever tell what in the world it was. And of course, it was a dummy warhead, but it did its thing, just like it kind of has a signature and the sound of a fish. So it's very difficult to find underneath the waters. Now, these things can be programmed to travel in the seas for months before it hits its target, right? Which makes it almost impossible to really hunt down and stop. So it's not like a normal conventional, device. So, we face things like that. Russia's very sneaky in their technology. They had two subs that showed up near the Gulf in 2021. They have been seen and spotted. We have shadow signatures all throughout the East Coast, but we can never identify the actual vehicle that was in the water. We know it wasn't ours. And so we face these things. So we have to be very sober and diligent in these times.
Right. Now, I have reports, Mike, and I don't know if you can respond or not, that there is U.S. soldiers, as well as other Lithuania and maybe some other nations from NATO, that are actually in Ukraine, that are actually wearing Ukrainian uniforms and are helping the Ukrainian army operate some of these weapons that have been donated to them. Do you have any info on that?
Well, if we sent like Lars, if we sent the 4-base Lars system over there, right, we would have to have individuals who knew how to use that system. right? If we sent mobile-based missile tech over there, we would have to have somebody over there that knew about it. And of course, the U.S., we're still involved in 168 conflicts. The U.S. is right now 168 conflicts. Ukraine is not even counted among the 168. So that tells you we have a presence all over the earth. We have people where no people should be. Let's put it that way. So we're all over the place. But if that were the case, then that's the case. They're going to do what they have to do. Not just us, but most of the Coalition Special Forces, Special Ops Team, JSOC, they're going to be found all over the place. But keep in mind, some of the trackable systems have been used outside the Ukraine. In other words, here's what I'm saying. Russia has already tracked inbound ordnance that did not come from the Ukraine.
Okay.
I think you fairly answered.
Yeah, I think you fairly answered this, that there wouldn't be a conflict anywhere in the world that we wouldn't have some boots on the ground with some expertise, and I think you just answered that question. And that is why I think that Putin realizes he's already at war in the beginning stages with NATO, with the West. He actually just brought this war on, but it's been brewing for a while. What about China? Okay, I mean, China's warning their people, look out, there could be nuclear fallout. But China's also got an entire city of Shanghai on lockdown, and people are starving. What is going on over there?
Well, China has a heavy hand, against their people. And this, their excuse, this COVID thing, people really shouldn't buy that one. But China is preparing. What's funny? China just finished its evaluation of some of its mobile naval forces, right? As soon as they were finished, COVID-19 broke out. Then take note of that. Their training exercises seem to coalesce with the initiation of COVID-19, the outbreak, and the spread of COVID-19. Now, I'm not here to say COVID-19 is real or not real. Of course, it's a real virus, but I'm just talking about some of the correlations between this virus and the readiness state of China itself. And now China has been talking to Russia. China has also been talking to NATO, warning them that, because they don't want to prematurely get involved with anything either. Not yet. So they say. I don't believe that for a minute either. I strongly believe that China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and 2 other countries have been planning something for a very long time. And I believe that we're in this stage now that the world, I could never forget, Satan is behind all the confusion. Right? He's the author of confusion. So what we see in the world right now is spiritually controlled by some dark forces who have been permitted, because if God doesn't permit them to do something, they can't. It's just not going to work. But this dark force is coordinating all its little countries and people to do specific things, right? And they will ultimately band together at a stronger level to bring about, certain things in the world. But what we're seeing is a development of this right before our faces. It's a very,
let me ask you, that Putin has been purging his the FSB. I mean, he threw him in, the guy running his intelligence agency, sort of like our CIA, used to be their KGB. They threw that guy in prison. They've fired or arrested or eliminated 150 spies. Their top financial guy defected and took I don't know how many billions of dollars with him to Turkey. And there's generals that his defense minister's been replaced. I mean, is his regime in shambles, or is this just Putin stepping up another phase?
They're in fear of what Putin is about to do.
Wow.
They're in fear.
And Mike, I think I asked you this last week. Do you think he's going to use a nuke? I can't remember if I asked you or not. Do you think
Putin's going to? I do. I think a nuke is going to be used in the near term, in the very near term. I do. Yeah. I know a lot of people believe that they're their launch of nuclear weapons cycle is much like ours. No, it isn't. If people look very deeply, they'll find out that all the individuals of trust that would be safeguards against the use of nuclear weapons have been ousted. That means that's a consolidation of power. That's a consolidation of control. And this is what has some folks up at night in NATO and the UN, because they know, and those people in Russia, the ones who have defected, they're trying to communicate. What they have communicated is basically what we're talking about now, but they are frightened. They are frightened now. His intelligence personnel, and it was more than one that he actually locked away, they don't scare as easily as the other ones do. But even these guys are, there's a bit of trepidation within them as to what Putin will do. And if Putin is going to lose, if communism is going to actually fall, right, he'll make everything else fall with it. Let's put it that way. He'll cause everything else to fall. And so it's a very slippery game that's being played now, and the stakes are extremely high because one wrong move, and he will be provoked into doing, something that the world does not want. And once it begins, it's not just all of a sudden going to stop. A nuclear weapon that's launched anywhere on the face of the earth will eventually begin to affect everybody. Right, and we certainly don't need anything to upset our atmosphere, air. But again, I made a statement a long time ago, many years ago. I believe the entire northern hemisphere is going to be poisoned one day. It's going to be poison.
What?
Very deadly. And a lot of people are going to have to go to. This is my belief. They're going to have to, kind of go southern to the southern regions to get away from all the toxic fumes and everything else in the northern hemisphere. It's kind of like the storms. Most storms are attracted to what? The northern hemisphere, right? That's where all the activity is with the storms. So if the air is contaminated, if chemical biological weapons are used, and some of these persistent agents are released into the atmosphere, they will settle in the northern hemisphere. And thus you're going to have an issue in the northern hemisphere. That will unleash plagues on plagues if that happens.
I almost named this show The Wormwood Prophecy, and I didn't even know why. I was just going to say, I was thinking about maybe an asteroid smashing the ground or whatever from out there, and getting a feel from you about what incoming it's coming. I am going to ask you that, but it's funny you bring this up, that from nuclear fallout, the northern hemisphere could actually become a wormwood atmosphere. Let me ask you this question. These 3 explosions on the backside of the sun, they say they were so powerful that they're going to affect Mercury. Mike, what is going on? I mean, plus we're getting hit with geomagnetic storms. I think we have a G2 geomagnetic storm going on right now. We'll probably have a G1 tomorrow. I mean, we're getting hit way over the top from where we should be in the what we call the sun cycle. So what's going on, Mike? Is this the effects of Planet X? I mean, is it intensifying?
If this happens, wouldn't this be the 6th time some sort of CME or explosion from the sun was directed at Mercury? And here we go with Mercury. Remember Mercury? I said it's going to shift itself out of orbit. It's going to cause us some issues, Mercury.
I remember you saying it. I'm like, how's that
going to cause us some issues? Yeah, it's going to cause us some issues. It is a big magnetic ball, and as we have these internal influences coming into our solar system, upsetting, or let's just say overcharging everything, Mercury is going to be one of the direct respondents of that disruption. In fact, we're going to see quite a few planets out of order. You know what's so funny, Pastor Paul, is science is a funny thing, and education is a funny thing. The history that is told to most people, specifically talking about the planets, they don't want amateur astronomers to ever find out that the order of the planets has not always been the way it is. They don't want that. They don't want that to be at all. Because if that would change everything, right? That would change everybody's theory of stability and everything else. The Earth and its rotation, the moon and its purpose and what it actually is, all this stuff is soon to be exposed. And when it is exposed, unfortunately, it's going to be at a very volatile time, because all of these inbound forces are causing massive effects inside of our solar system. And it's going to continue to escalate. It will reach a point where, nobody's going to mistake the sun's activity because it's going to cause people genuine fear. And in the middle of our nights, we're going to have solar activity in the middle of the nights that will change night to day and do the same to daytime, turn day to night. So all these effects that are loosely described in historical, context throughout several different, many different societies, we're about to see again. We've actually hit that cycle, and everything is matching perfectly, including how strange, or let's just say how evil people are getting these days, right? The sudden increase as of January in schizophrenia, right? It's off the scales.
What?
It's off the scales. You have people they're paranoid, and you have too many cases of people being schizophrenic, and you have medication being prescribed all over the USA, right? All over the USA as of January, because something is happening to the people big time. I mean, big time. So, all this goes together. We're starting to see these effects, but they're just beginning. The world has not experienced problems yet in comparison to what's coming. And we're starting to get a taste of that. Piece by piece, we're starting to get a taste of it. But the sun and its activity will almost certainly, be one of those unavoidable things. People will be able to see it. It will frighten people. People are going to ask questions, and I guarantee you right now they're preparing boards, panelists, and everything else to explain to the people some weird context or explanation for half of what's happening. But it is just not going to work, not for the Christians, because most of your listeners, they know this stuff beforehand. But Pastor, imagine the world if the sun were to dislodge one of the planets, right?
What? Yes. Okay.
Your listeners would say, okay, well, this probably has to do with binary system or something close to it. So your listeners will know, but the average person out there, they're going to believe whatever is said on the television. Yeah. They're going to believe it.
Yep.
So in the world, they're going to dumb down everything until a person dies. Here's the way if we were about to get a meteor storm, they would be like Putin. No, I'll never invade the Ukraine, right?
Right.
Even the day he invaded the Ukraine, that's not us, right? He does this every single time. Well, the media is just like it. They're going to deny it. Why? Because first of all, they're being paid for the news, right? They're being paid to do that. Then they're following somebody else's agenda. They're not doing what they're doing out of the goodness of their hearts. They're doing it to keep their nice lifestyle. But they're going to, it was already said a long time ago that the CIA was asked to oversee all news media, which is why you have people right now. Which is why you have people right now developing their own communications platforms that are private. Right?
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah,
you're going to see that more and more.
Yeah.
You'll see that more and more. And we're going to get to the point where media will totally be, probably be taken away or something like that. But because we're going to have too many different competitors.
Well, True Social, which of course is Trump's new platform, and I joined that. I'm on it, but only half the people can even get on it. Well, even less than that. Because first of all, you have to have an iPhone. You can't use it if you're an Android. And then second, because he's trying to get his system up, he's running into all kinds of obstacles by big tech.
Well, of course he is.
Big media, big tech, big money. So I think what's happened is that Elon Musk has said, you know what, forget it. Let's just hostile takeover. Let's just take Twitter. Do you think he's going to pull that off, by the way?
He could. If he wanted to, he could. He's got enough assets. This is a guy that paid, what he paid? Well, I probably shouldn't name the amount he paid, but he paid a portion of his taxes like it was, like he was getting bubblegum out of a bubblegum machine. And it was beyond, it was more than the U.S. just gave the Ukraine again. Right?
Yeah, in taxes. I think he's paid $6.1 billion is what I heard, and that's insane.
He left that up to his listeners. What do you guys think I should do? What do you think? I can go ahead and pay it or not. He didn't care. Yeah. The guy has Elon Musk he is different. He is. Yeah. But he also sees he also sees what's developing, and he's in a direct fight with it. Now, I'm not saying he's a holy person or anything like that. He is who he is, but he also sees the mechanism of restraint, right? He sees that coming from the government, by the way, which is falling apart all by its lonesome.
Our U.S. government is falling apart. If it can't, we got to have a turnaround here fast. You know, it's crazy. All right, I don't want to go there too strong tonight, but you are talking about some significant things here when you start talking about the sun being affected this bad by the Planet X. And this affects everything, including the mentality of world leaders. Because aren't they afraid? Isn't it about survival? Is that what's happening right now with Putin and maybe others? They got to get the resources, a post-apocalyptic world or something. What's going on,
Pastor? Right? Keep in mind, all of what we talk about, right? If it is real, if the approach of a binary system is real, right? Yeah. Then those that are way up there on the ladder, they know about it. Yeah, right? And if they know about it, they're going to do something for themselves and the people they want to go with them, right? Which means they're going to make drastic moves. I'll say this. Our government, the USA, I can say this openly, our government, the USA, looks like a scripted, something somebody wrote in a book. Even the people that are in the White House, it does not seem real. And I say that because in times past, we've had qualified individuals in the White House, people who fought. They actually fought for rights, not the right to write a piece of paper or something, but they actually fought for people's rights. Right. They were concerned about the people. You would have congressmen who would pop up in cities and just talk to the people to get their pulse, to see, you know, what direction they really wanted to go. You don't see any of that. What you see now are people in the White House telling the people exactly what they want. They don't go ask the people. They'll say, well, what the people want is, but they're not talking to anybody. So that lets you know that this is the pushing of agendas. It's almost like they're playing a game. They know it's a game. They don't care who loses because they know they're playing for higher stakes. And while they're doing that, you have some backdoor deals and everything else is taking place. They're preparing resources, right? A long time ago I said, Pastor Paul, if all this is real, then they're going to stock their underground bases. Yeah, they are. And we're going to have an interruption in water. We're going to have an interruption in our resources and food. It's going to be diverted somewhere else. Well, we had Jade Helm. People started talking about the Walmarts. All of a sudden, people forgot about the Walmarts and Jade Helm. And they don't, most people don't even know that Walmart was the most complicated logistical program on the face of the earth, that every single country uses its algorithms. And so right after that moment, what do we have right now? We had a pandemic, and nobody seems to agree how it began. They don't know if if the virus came from bats or a snake. They don't know which one it came from because of, you know, all the drugs involved. I can't get into that. But it's confusion on top of confusion. Nobody's quite clear about it, right? Yep. And while people are worried and doing those things, you have a whole nother group of people who are shuffling around resources. Even in Russia, Russia has been shuffling resources. Iran has been shuffling resources. China. And it's almost like this is a big scripted thing that somebody is, you know, they're going by playbook here, and a time element is involved because they really don't care about the outcome of the people for some reason. Well,
It sounds like the time element is involved, meaning it is getting much closer than, of course, any of us know, but they must have an ideal, and that they may be behind in their agenda of preparing and stocking and preparing for a world to live underground. And I have a feeling that that as this closer this thing comes, the more desperate nations are going to get. The shortages of food and famine, manufactured famine, shortage of water, because you say it's being diverted, and I agree with you, or let's say they are, it's going to become quite obvious. And so the turmoil, the chaos, the confusion, who's the author of confusion but Lucifer himself, Satan himself.
That's right.
And we're headed for a very messed up world right now. It's very messed up.
That's right, Pastor Paul. And yeah, Lucifer's right behind it. And we know that there's a specific season. God gives him reign to rule for a certain amount of time. Now, no Christian should be frightened of that, because God already said that nobody who is written in the book of life is going to worship the beast or take the mark. So anybody written in the book of life, they don't have to worry about that. We have a different mission, right? We have a different mission. It's called the gospel. Till the day we can't say anything anymore, but these kingdoms that are rising, we can see it. It shouldn't even make a Christian nervous. It should make them work more, right? Because what it's actually doing, Pastor Paul, is the worse the world gets in all of its systems, the more you have people saying, oh no, now I see it's really evil. But if we have to stand up so they have somewhere to go, because I guarantee you right now, people are looking for an alternative. They're saying, you know, I need to get my life right with Christ. Where are the representatives at? Because they don't know how to do it by themselves. And so we have as times get very confusing and rough and bad, we have a job to do. You're talking about that revival you were talking about. I believe part of that revival is when people actually see how evil things are in the world. When things get very desperate, they will get desperate. And these folks are going to want a way out. They're going to really contemplate the question, what happens to me when I die? And I've seen it in combat. I've seen it all throughout my life. When people start contemplating that, they are ready. They're ready to listen and everything else. So, wow, we're really getting to that point.
That's why you're saying the greatest revival in the world's history is about to break loose, as people begin to see that their demise could potentially be at hand. And we know that from individual moments in ministry and different people we've met along the way. But imagine a whole world knowing that it is on the brink of demise. That's why in Ukraine they rushed for Bibles everywhere. They can't find a Bible. People knew that something was happening to them that they never dreamed was going to happen in their lifetime. I mean, they always knew out there somewhere the possibility of Russia attacking them. But, you know, they were living a modern day lives there. They were happy families, living, moving, working. The economy was pretty good. So we as believers understand what's coming. Jesus told us, as you know, Mike, in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. We can read Revelation. We can see what the Bible said is coming upon humanity. So we shouldn't be really shocked by it or afraid at all, because we know we have Christ. Live or die, I have Jesus Christ, and he's going to take care of me right till I hit the pearly gates. But the world doesn't have that, Mike.
No, they don't.
And Christians are hated for, I guess, because the devil hates us because we do have the message of hope. So what should we do as Christians? What should we do in this chaotic time? Can we, besides preaching the gospel, we're trying to get people saved, but how do we approach people when they are in fear, when they're in really fear?
You know what, Pastor Paul, one of the major things in this time is that before anything major happens, God always foreshadows a person's life to get them prepared for what they're going to have to deal with. And in most people's lives, they have dealt with a diversity of situations. Now, the question is, in the situations God has allowed to transform in our lives, to transpire in our lives, have we overcome evil in those situations? Have we chosen Christ out of all those situations? Because I guarantee you, everything we've gone through so far has been preparing us for a major time that's coming. See, when the sky changes, right, you're not going to have to convince anybody, but we are going to have to give an answer to that one who's coming at us, and they're going to ask, you know how a small child will ask you a question and nobody has the answer? Because a little kid can ask a question that will cause you to think very deeply, right? This is how people are going to be. All the playtime, all the entertainment stuff, all this, I'm going to challenge you in this, and all that's gone. When life and death, right? When life and death is on the scales, people are going to know. They're going to want to know, will Jesus really save me? Am I really going to hell, or am I really going to heaven? Don't be surprised if a Christian that you knew was a Christian for a long time comes up and says, I'm not sure if I'm going to go to heaven or not. Am I going to go to heaven? So all this time that we live in right now is a good time. It's like school. It's like college. It's a good time to start to apply everything we've learned of the Lord in our own lives, overcome Satan in our own lives, which means we shouldn't be moved by anything, so that we're actually ready for it's going to be an exodus from the world, Amen. Pastor Paul. They're about to see things they never thought they would see. And I'll say it again, when the sky changes, when there are manifestations of things in the earth that no one ever counted on, then you won't have to prove a thing to anybody. And if a person's been sitting at home and their family won't listen to them, don't waste your time on that. They will come to you in time. When they start seeing all this house of cards fall apart, when there's no help from the government, when the government has abandoned them, when it's lawlessness in the streets, when half the world is on fire, storms are still taking people's lives.
What?
They're going to come to you. They're going to say, aren't you the one that talked about this stuff many years ago? You knew what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But the other guy down the street, he didn't even talk about Revelation. So we can't go to him. We want to know from you. Your own family, people's own family members will come to them, remembering what they said. See, it's important now that they have heard your weirdness, they have heard your statements, right? They may laugh at you now, but they will not when everything falls apart. It never fails. It happens that way every single time.
They think you're right. We do seem a little weird to the world because we're saying, look, the world's going to be on fire, wars, rumors of wars, shortages and famines and pestilence and diseases and all of these things. We talk about all these apocalyptic events that are coming upon the world. But as they happen, they know, whoa. We got to go find the people who know what they're talking about. We blew them off at first, but now they're the ones we want to see. Don't you think, Mike, that this online church, the people that gather over at CLT and over here and places where the truth is really preached, not afraid to tell people the truth, that this is so important. I mean, we need this is to be preserved. I mean, what God is doing with us is to reach the world. Every one of us are going to have to be involved in that. I mean, every one of us. And so,
Amen.
I'm praying right now. I'll be honest with you. I'm praying that Elon Musk gets Twitter. I am. And the reason I am, because he's not to go right, but to open up a free, if he does what he says, open up free debate. Because I think that Christians need to be turned loose to say and to warn and to preach and to tell and to beg and to plead. The Bible says, compel them. Go into the highways, to the byways, and compel them to come in. And how are we going to do that? I'm not going to go stand out on I-75 or I-65, but I am going to do what we're doing right now. We're going to do it all together. Everybody goes to their own Twitter page, their own, Truth Social and YouTube and everywhere, and they're telling people about Jesus, because the world is going to be. People are going to die of heart attacks for fear. And you just said something. When the sky changes colors, when it changes. Matter of fact, I got an email. There's a guy watching right now, I'm sure. He sent me a text of the other night at sunset. You wouldn't believe it. It was golden with a apocalyptic red sky. And when I saw it, it was insane. He sent it to me. He said, is this what Mike from around the world? You know what? I'm going to try to, by Sunday night, I'm going to try to get that picture up on the screen for everybody. Mike, what you said's coming. Is this partly, the Bible says this. Jesus said in Luke 21, verse 10. He said, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Great earthquakes shall be in divers places, famines, pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. Is that what we're about to see? Is this coming upon us?
Oh yeah, I believe so. Pastor Paul, with all my heart, I believe so. I believe so. And I believe it's going to be so profound that not one individual will be able to look into, they're going to be frightened right into their homes. They're going to be frightened. It's going to be profound. And you know what? A long time ago, the Lord showed me that in part of a dream, people were going out after they got off work, and they were they were just overwhelmed by how beautiful and colorful the clouds were and the sky was. But what they didn't understand was it marked the end of something. Because shortly after that, something hit the oceans. Something happened with the oceans. I thought it was a wave of water, but it wasn't. It was ash. It was a wall of ash that was burning. It was burning up everything in its place. And I remember at that moment, because before that, there were fish under the underpasses, right? I could see fish under the underpasses. Now, I saw this. This was 1994, right? And all these dreams, or all these times we've had these coastal floods and fish. Last year I saw fish under the underpasses, right? And so, but this time, something happened in the oceans that was so devastating that a pyroclastic flow came from the oceans to the coastlines and burnt up everything in its path. Everything. I don't even, you know what, I thought it was a wall of water, but it was brown. I thought something fell from the sky. One thing I do know, right, is that this wall was hot air, debris, ash, and everything else. And it came right after the coastal floods and the sky being colorful in the evenings, because everybody would go out and take pictures of the sky, because the clouds were different colors. The sky was different. It was a deep blue with red and turquoise and purple, and all these different colors were in the clouds. Of course, we know those are auroras.
Yeah, right.
And if we start having auroras, then something has gone totally wrong with our atmosphere. But people were out there doing that. Right after that, I began to observe the highways. There were fish under the underpasses. Then I saw a documentary on the television. They were either orcas or they were dolphins inverted near the ruins of an underground city. This was in a documentary I saw in the dream. They were inverted. And I remember seeing them inverted. Pastor, right after that, I found myself on the beach, and I could see dust coming. What I thought was dust at first, then a wall of water, but it was not. It was ash. It was hot, and it incinerated everything in its path. It came from the ocean. That's where it came from. Now, if you were to have a dream like that had that little cycle in there 24 times, okay, something is going on with that, right? Because it's so detailed, but I've seen the fish under the underpasses. I've seen that very clip I saw in that dream on the news. I've seen it on the news when they had that flood in Texas. They showed an underpass, right? On the coast of Texas, they showed an underpass with fish and other things were right under there, just like that dream, and my heart sunk. I said, oh, we're close. We are close. Because during the same time, for those who live in Texas, and I think possibly it's the oil wells, but they had fire that came from beneath and above. And I heard people scream a scream I have never heard in my life. This was a scream. Even a person in trouble wouldn't scream this way. This was almost a scream of death, a scream of absolute despair. There was nowhere to run, right? But the fire spread all over the place during this time. And of course, that was only a dream, but I had the same cycle. I had the same dream 24 times. I can't deny it. It happened. That's just the way it is. That's why I can be detailed and somewhat confident about what was in it, because I kind of trust. It's almost like the Lord had me prepared, because it first scared me. But over the course of time, I've gotten so used to it. And I've talked to others about this dream. I mentioned people in this dream. In 2006, I'll give you an example, Pastor Paul. When Clinton was still in the White House, I saw Obama as a senator. I told two of my cousins have the letters. They said, isn't he the one? I said, yep, that's it. And I told somebody else in my family, I said, listen, that guy's going to be president. They said, not in your lifetime. That will never happen. But I couldn't deny it. So I was a nut for a while, right?
Right.
But I bet you I told about 28, 30 people. But as soon as he was elected, all the jokes went out. They would say, well, what else did he show you?
Know? Yeah.
But the Lord didn't have me give them anything. I mean, yeah. I didn't want to. It was almost like I just turned away. I couldn't tell them anything. But I'm saying that to say we're right in the middle of something right now. And people were not ready in the dream. They didn't even suspect it. In fact, it was almost a night like tonight. And things were so subtle. Nobody could see it change so rapidly. And then all of a sudden, wham, right? Travel was out of the window. The streets were buckled. For some, I don't know why the streets were buckled, but they were buckled. Highways were impassable, and people were trying to find underground shelters all over the place. Even in the mountains of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, into PA, they were trying to find shelter in the Appalachian chain, right? But there were so many details to that. And now we stand right in the middle of it. Right in the middle. And my goodness. So when you see things like this, when you see that, like, I can't deny we live in a time where everything is going to change. I also believe that if not all of your listeners, most of your listeners were born with Revelation already in them. They're attracted, they're drawn to the book of Revelation, right? And they try to live a normal life without it. I guarantee you they have, but it wasn't right. It seemed dead and empty. And only when the events like in Revelation begin to manifest in the earth do they feel alive and purposed. They have no purpose in some peaceful, strut along the road time. They have a purpose. When things start erupting and going wrong, that's where their purpose is. And they were born with this before they were ever taught that.
I believe that. Yes. I believe they're part of the remnant. I believe that.
I do too.
And when you get this call, I mean, I've had people say to me, "Man, Pastor Bagley, I don't know. I think maybe I'm supposed to be here like during the end times to help lead people to Jesus when the Antichrist is rising and stuff." I mean, I've had people tell me that almost my whole life, that they felt that was their call, like that's what they're supposed to be here for. And I guarantee you, as you just said that, there's people out there right now who are saying, you know what, I wondered why I was drawn to prophecy, drawn to Revelation, drawn to this broadcast, drawn to the current events and how they unfold. And we're looked at sometimes as like we're a little bit off because, we're focusing on the future. But anytime you walk in prophecy, you will be a little peculiar. And the Bible says that we are a peculiar people. In other words, we don't just get up every day and live, and just kind of float along. We actually have a purpose. I love the way you said that. And it's divine direction. We have a God-given destiny. We have a purpose.
That's right.
And you're 24 times. I know what it's like to have a dream 2 or 3 times. So good that it's ingrained in me, a prophetic dream from the Lord. 24 times. I mean, I have not experienced that before. This means God has like downloaded. And when you said you saw fires, I think about the great A.A. Allen, because he saw America on fire from one coast to the other. George Washington saw fires burning across the nation. Other prophecies have come forward. Dmitri Duduman saw fire from one coast to the other across America, but he said that America survived. This is quite so when I hear you say Texas, fish under the underpass, oil wells may be erupting. I mean, something's happening in the center of the earth. That's what you've been saying. The core of the earth is melting down like a nuclear reactor. Is that why radiation's getting so high? I want to say this. There's a guy watching right now. I know he's out there. Eddie's out there. Eddie, you was telling me today. I was on the phone with him. He's he's a genius in a lot of ways. This guy is. He lives way up in the northern Michigan. He said to me, Paul, everybody's getting the EMP shield. He said, which I have a bunch of them myself to protect stuff. But he said, nobody's checking the radiation Geiger counters. You ought to see what the radiation levels are now. They're going off the charts. Mike, do you know anything about that?
Well, they are. It's almost like a pattern in the atmosphere, right? And on these lines of that pattern, radiation is high. It is spiking in a lot of areas, right? There are so many strange things happening right now that are recordable. And they also changed some of the old Geiger counters are the best. Some of the ones that are not calibrated by some of the new standards, because they've calibrated Geiger counters to eliminate some of the increase, right, in a lot of radioactive waves that are being put out. Gamma rays are coming out the earth, and they're increasing. You have a change in just about everything, and I know that people they're really frightened of an EMP. I'll say this. From Pastor, I saw something happen to the gas, right? Because I won't go into depth. I'll just say this on credit. Let's put it that way. But the grass, during that time, during a specific time, I could see street lights. I could see houses with lights in them. But no one cut the grass and no one moved a car. Why?
Because everything was fried.
No one moved, but you could see street lights. You could see lights in homes, but no one cut the grass and no one moved the car.
Well, were they afraid to go outside because of...
The only thing I can figure out is something happened to the fuel. Something happened to the fuel.
Ooh.
I don't know what happened to it, but nobody had fuel. Nobody could cut grass, run a weed eater, or anything else. Grass was growing up in the street. You could see cars. I saw a car that actually worked, but they didn't start it. It was like it was battery power, but electricity was still flowing. But it was almost like there was no gas anywhere. No gas anywhere. So I'm just putting that out there because in that dream, part of that cycle, 24 times, was something happened to the gas. And this was a very dark time because at that same time, there were these big bears with patterns like a Jack Russell's dog that was going from house to house of people who did not repent. And you could hear, I knew what was happening when those bears went in there. It was two of them. Two big white bears with Jack Russell's patterns going from house to house to people who still practiced iniquity during those times.
Okay, guys, so look, it's going to get ugly out there. And look, this is why we need to be saved. We need to know who we are in Christ, why we need to be prepared in this Passover weekend, this Resurrection Sunday. Jesus died on the cross. But I got news for you. He didn't stay in the grave. He arose, and he's alive, and he sits at the right hand of the Father, and he's coming soon for those of us who truly believe, and not just know about it, but believe and follow the Lord. We do, there's going to be some that say, Lord, we prophesied in your name, we cast out devils in the streets, and he'll say, look, I don't even know who you are. Mike, it's time to get serious, isn't it?
It is. It is. And you know what I love, Pastor? The same one that opens the seals is the same one that forgives me of my sins. By his death, I can be forgiven. So I'm not afraid of anything that comes because the one that brings it all is in charge of my salvation.
Amen.
So I'm not afraid.
Nothing to fear.
I'm not
here.
afraid at all.
We got it. We've got the
Amen.
man. We've got it through Jesus Christ. Mike, I want you to pray that you and your family have a great Easter weekend, Resurrection Sunday weekend. Be blessed, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, Pastor Paul. It's going to be a very special Easter this time. It will be. I have that spiritual feeling. This will be a special one.
I do too.
Yeah.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you too.
Thank you. Amen.